So you think you're being authentic. You think your thoughts are yours. Well, they're not. Woo! That quote you reposted, "Be yourself, everyone else is taken." Cute, but it wasn't Oscar Wilde. But you did. You posted it. You liked it. You felt seen. And that is the point. You're not chasing truth. You're chasing the feeling of truth. Whatever sounds smart, sounds deep, sounds like something someone clever would say, your brain just eats it raw.
Nani? Don't forget to like and subscribe.
It's all noise. Noise wearing the mask of meaning. We're living in a copy-paste culture where originality isn't dying. It's already dead. And the funeral? Well, you're liking it. You're sharing it. You're quoting it with a filtered selfie. And so here we are, drowning in a sea of secondhand profundity, wondering why our thoughts feel like they're wearing someone else's clothes.
Like, comment, and subscribe.
Welcome to the unusual practice where we question everything, especially ourselves. This is Charlie, currently and constantly questioning every decision that led to this podcast.
Yeah, baby. Yeah.
3, 2, 1.
Up and up we go! So let's get one thing straight. Before we spiral into existential panic, original thought isn't about inventing fire from scratch or pulling ideas out of thin air like some cognitive magician. That's not how human brain works. We're not isolated islands of pure creativity floating in a void.
Ron, where are you? I'm in a glass case of emotion.
Human cognition encompasses processes such as memory, association, concept formation, pattern recognition, which is psychology's fancy way of saying we're all intellectual magpies, constantly collecting shiny bits of information and weaving them together.
Aww, so cute.
True original thought is synthesis with sweat equity. It's what happens when you take the things you've absorbed, the books, the conversations, the 3 a.m. rabbit holes down YouTube, and you let them ferment in the messy brewery of your lived experience until something genuinely yours bubbles up. It's the difference between a sommelier describing wine and a drunk person shouting about how this tastes like my childhood. The German philosopher Hannah Arendt put it brilliantly.
The sad truth is that most evil is done by people who never make up their minds to be good or evil.
She was not talking about original thought directly, but she might as well have been, because thinking, real thinking, requires you to make up your mind. It requires you to sit with discomfort long enough for it to become yours.
Ugh, cringe.
Look at how different cultures handle this discomfort. In Nordic countries, they have a concept called hygge, which we've talked about before. But more interesting is their approach to intellectual solitude. Swedish coffee culture isn't just about caffeine. It's about fika, mandatory breaks where you sit, think, and let ideas settle. Compare that to the Brazilian concept of saudade, a melancholic longing that can only be understood through lived experience. You can't copy-paste it. You actually have to feel it first. Or take the French intellectual tradition, they've got flâneur, the art of purposeful wandering, which sounds pretentious until you realize it's literally about creating space for unexpected connections. The flâneur doesn't consume content, they encounter life. Massive difference. But here's what's truly twisted about our current moment. We've created a culture where the friction that generates original thought has been sanded away. Everything's too smooth, too instant, and too pre-digested. We've optimized away the very conditions that make thinking possible. The Russian novelist Fyodor Dostoevsky wrote in his notebooks,
To live without hope is to cease to live.
but what happens when hope becomes a hashtag? When suffering becomes content? When even our deepest experiences get flattened into shareable moments? We're not just losing original thought. We're losing the capacity for the kind of sustained, uncomfortable engagement with reality that makes original thought possible. We're becoming intellectual tourists in our own minds, snapping selfies with ideas instead of actually living with them. So the real question isn't whether you can think original thoughts. It's whether you can tolerate the loneliness of having them.
Oh my gosh! Did you hear that? Oh god!
We have turned human experience into a series of shareable moments. Everything, and I mean everything, gets flattened into slogans, hashtags, and bite-sized wisdom that fits in a square. Research shows that meme culture participants perform 4 different types of engagement: original creation, remixing, curation, and sharing. But here's the kicker. We've skipped straight to the sharing bit. We've become curators of other people's thoughts, convinced that arrangement equals authorship. The brilliant media theorist Douglas Rushkoff said it best.
The real question is not whether we can think for ourselves, but whether we remember how.
And honestly, look around. I'm not sure we do. Social media platforms have created a perfect storm for intellectual laziness. Social media algorithms favor highly engaging content with tons of comments, shares, and likes. More engagement equals better chances of going viral. But here's what they don't tell you. Depth does not go viral. Nuance doesn't get likes. And complexity does not fit in caption. The algorithms literally reward speed over substance, heat over light. Algorithms reward content that drives engagement, not necessarily what's accurate, nuanced, or ethical. We're no longer taught to think. We're trained to reframe someone else's take for engagement. So think about it. When was the last time you saw a genuinely complex idea trend on social media? When did you see a thought that required more than 3 seconds to understand? The platforms have turned us into intellectual day traders, constantly flipping quick takes for attention dividends.
Is to introduce 9,600 megawatt.
Let's talk about how we look, because Christ, have you seen us lately? Everyone suddenly in oversized beige trench coats, sporting that clean girl hair, lacing up New Balance sneakers like we're all members of some bizarre minimalist cult. The French have a term, mal dans sa peau, uncomfortable in your own skin. But we've gone one further. We're uncomfortable in our own aesthetic choices. We're dressing like algorithms, not humans. Trends cycle so fast now that individual style has become impossible. By the time you've figured out what you actually like, 3 micro trends have come and gone, and you're left standing in a pile of beige linen wondering who you're supposed to be this week. Normcore was supposed to be ironic, a deliberate rejection of fashion's pretensions. Now it's just the uniform. We've turned anti-fashion into fashion, rebellion into conformity. Even our attempts at authenticity have been commodified and sold back to us. Compare this to how style develops in cultures less plugged into the global trend machine. In rural Ireland, you can still find men wearing the same style of wool jumper their grandfathers wore, not because it's trendy, but because it works. It's practical. It's theirs. There's something profound about clothing choices that emerge from lived experience rather than algorithmic suggestion. But the real tragedy isn't how we dress. It's actually how we speak. Listen to conversations now. They're full of buzzwords pulled straight from the therapy speak industrial complex. Energy, trauma response, soft life, villain era, holding space. Real feelings have been swapped for prefab language. We've outsourced emotional expression to whoever coined the latest catchy phrase. Your actual experience of sadness gets compressed into, I'm going through it. Your joy becomes, living my best life. Your anger transforms into, choosing violence today. Even when you're just mildly annoyed about coffee being too expensive. Woo! Even our arguments are templated now. Educate yourself. Do the work. As a whatever I am, I can tell you that. We've turned disagreement into a series of rhetorical power moves rather than actual exchange of ideas. Morning routines built from YouTube montages, not personal rhythm. Everyone wants a van life, a cottagecore garden, or a dopamine detox. We've turned self-improvement into a series of Instagram-ready lifestyle choices. The profound sadness here is that individuality has been flattened into aesthetics. You don't develop a unique way of being, you choose from a menu of pre-approved personality types. Are you that girl? Are you in your soft era? Are you healing your inner child? In contrast, look at how identity forms in cultures with stronger communal traditions. In many African societies, your identity emerges through your relationships, your responsibilities to others. Oh no! And you're placed in a complex social web. You can't just decide to be someone different because you saw a compelling TikTok. But we've convinced ourselves that identity is something you can optimize, something you can hack. We're not expressing ourselves. We're ordering identities off the shelf, then wondering why nothing fits quite right. As the sociologist Zygmunt Bauman warned about our liquid modernity, everything solid melts into air, including our sense of who we are. But he couldn't have predicted how efficiently we'd turn that liquidity into content. The brutal truth? We've become intellectual tourists in our own lives, taking selfies with experiences instead of actually having them. So let's be clear about something. This is not happening by accident. There are very specific psychological and structural reasons why we've collectively decided to outsource our thinking to the internet hive mind. First up, overchoice paralysis. Psychologist Barry Schwartz takes aim at a central tenet of Western societies: freedom of choice. In Schwartz's estimation, choice has made us not freer, but more paralyzed, not happier, but more dissatisfied. We have access to literally millions of opinions, perspectives, and ways of being. You could spend your entire life exploring different philosophical positions, lifestyle choices, career paths, ways of dressing, speaking, thinking. The sheer volume of possibility is crushing. So what do? Well, we copy the dominant thing to feel safe. It's cognitive triage. When faced with infinite options, we grab whatever seems to be working for other people and hope it works for us too. It's the intellectual equivalent of following the crowd when you're lost in a foreign city. But here's the twisted bit. Having too many choices requires more cognitive effort, leading to decision fatigue and increased anxiety. We're literally too tired from deciding what to think to actually think our own thoughts. Then there's the virality pressure. Better to mimic what's liked than risk being boring. We've internalized the social media feedback loop so completely that we pre-edit our thoughts for maximum shareability. The brutal mathematics of online attention mean that being genuinely original is actually a liability. Original thoughts require context, explanation, nuance. They're messy, complicated, and personal. They don't fit in a caption. They don't inspire immediate agreement or outrage. So we learn to think in viral-ready chunks. We develop what I call engagement brain, the constant background calculation of how this thought, this opinion, this observation will play with the crowd. We're not thinking. We're market testing our consciousness.
Good job. I am so proud of you.
And then there's the deepest, most depressing reason: existential fatigue. Creating original thoughts is actually exhausting. It requires sustained attention, tolerance for uncertainty, willingness to be wrong, and capacity to sit with discomfort. It's the mental equivalent of running a marathon while everyone else is taking the bus. Curating is easier than creating. It's less risky, less vulnerable, less likely to expose your fundamental weirdness to the world. You can build an entire personality out of other people's insights and never have to risk having an original thought that falls flat.
This legend.
The philosopher Byung-Chul Han wrote about the burnout society, that we're so overwhelmed by the demand to be constantly productive, constantly optimized, constantly on, that genuine creativity becomes impossible. Basically, in a nutshell, y'all, we're just too tired to think.
What the fuck?
Now, here's where it gets really sinister. The institutions that are supposed to teach us how to think are actually teaching us how to conform. Let's start with education. According to Robinson, standardized testing is a key factor in the decline of creativity in schools. When schools focus too much on preparing students for these tests, they prioritize subjects like math and language skills. Sir Ken Robinson spent his career pointing out that schools are designed to produce compliant workers, not creative thinkers. World-renowned educator Sir Ken Robinson says education should be about helping children and young people understand the talents that lie within them, and about helping them become fulfilled individuals and compassionate, productive citizens. Duh! He says this can be achieved if education becomes more personalized rather than standardized. But what actually happens? Well, you know as much as I do. School punishes creative answers that don't fit the rubric. You learn early that there's a right way to think, and deviation gets you marked down. By the time you graduate, you've been trained to look for the approved answer rather than develop your own. I remember watching a kid in 6th grade solving a math problem using a method nobody had taught him. Beautiful, elegant, completely correct. The teacher marked it wrong because it wasn't the proper way. The kid learned a lesson that day, and it was not about mathematics. The Finnish, meaning in Finland, their education system consistently ranked among the world's best and has minimal standardized testing and maximum creative exploration. Finnish students don't just perform better academically, they report higher levels of satisfaction and creativity. They're learning to think, not just to regurgitate.
I'm sorry, what?
And then there's media. News recycles talking points. So do we. Everyone's citing the same podcast clips, the same books, the same Harvard studies. We've created a closed loop of ideas that reference each other endlessly without ever touching actual reality. You know what's really mad? Half the original content you see online is just people repackaging the same 3 psychological studies, the same handful of philosophical concepts, the same startup mantras. It's intellectual inbreeding, ideas getting weaker and more distorted with each generation. The media landscape rewards speed over accuracy, heat over light, confirmation over revelation. News outlets compete to be first, not right. Podcasters compete to be viral, not valuable. Not everybody is like the unusual practice. Thank you very much.
I didn't see that coming.
And influencers compete to be relatable, not remarkable. We're drowning in information, but starving for wisdom. We have access to more knowledge than any generation in human history, but we're using it to build increasingly sophisticated echo chambers. The result? We're not just consuming the same content, we're thinking the same thoughts. Now let's talk about the real villain in this story. Enter the algorithm. Not some abstract technological boogeyman, but the very specific, very deliberate systems designed to keep you scrolling, clicking, consuming. Our feeds are optimized for familiarity, not friction. Ellie Pariser introduced the phenomenon of filter bubbles in 2011, where algorithms, search engines, and social media applications tend to present to you a distorted picture of the world around you. But it's gotten so much worse since then. And here's the brutal truth. That ecosystem is designed to make you comfortable, not to make you think. The algorithm learns what you like and gives you more of it. It learns what you share and shows you similar content. It learns what makes you pause, what makes you click, what makes you rage engage, and it feeds you an endless stream of exactly that. You think you're exploring ideas, but you're actually walking in circles. So your For You page isn't for you at all. It's for the algorithm. It's designed to generate data, engagement, advertising revenue. The algorithm doesn't care if you grow as a person, develop new perspectives, or have original thoughts. It just cares if you stay online. Thought diversity dies when you only see things you already agree with.
There's nothing to fear. Unusual practice, breaking the mold, lighting up pathways, both new and old.
Research shows that while diverse team composition does seem to confer an advantage when it comes to generating a wide range of original and useful ideas, we're doing the exact opposite in our personal information consumption. Studies indicate that any team can have great potential for creativity if the team members possess or perceive high cognitive diversity, defined as perceived differences in thinking styles, knowledge, skills, values, but our algorithms systematically eliminate cognitive diversity from our daily experience. We're creating intellectual monocultures in our own minds. Every uncomfortable idea gets filtered out. Every challenging perspective gets buried. Every opportunity for genuine growth gets algorithmically optimized away. The result? We're not just stuck in echo chambers. We're stuck in echo chambers of our own making, convinced they're the entire world. So, enough doom and gloom. Let's talk about how to actually fix this mess. Because here's the thing. You can't think your way out of this problem using the same thinking that got you into this mess in the first place. You need to literally rewild your mind.
What the hell are you talking about?
First, read weird books no one talks about. Stop following everybody else. Not the latest bestseller that everyone's posting quotes from, not the book that's trending on Book Talk, the weird one. The one that's been sitting in the library for decades with no checkout stamps. The one that makes you slightly uncomfortable just holding it. I'm talking about books that don't fit neatly into categories, books that were written by people who had no idea that we're supposed to think a certain way, books that nobody's turned into a podcast or a TED Talk or a series of inspirational Instagram posts. Why? Because these books still have their edges. They haven't been sanded down by the cultural consensus machine. They can still cut you, surprise you, piss you off, make you think thoughts you didn't know you were allowed to think. And the same applies for podcasts. The fact that you're listening to this podcast already tells me that you are incredibly original and different. Because not many people do podcasts like I do. And why? Because no one forced me to do this podcast. I'm not doing it for financial gains. I'm doing it because I truly and genuinely enjoy it and love sharing with you whatever sicko spiral I'm in. Second, and this is crucial, I want you to say what you actually think, even if it makes no sense at first. Not what you think you should think, not what sounds smart or reasonable or likely to get likes. What you actually, genuinely, weirdly think. Most original thoughts, they do sound stupid at first, trust me. They're incomplete, half-formed, embarrassing in the rawness. But that's where the good stuff lives, in that messy space between what you know and what you're trying to figure out. Stop editing yourself before you've even finished the thought. Stop preemptively cringing at your own ideas. Let them be weird and wrong and uncomfortable. That's where originality begins. Third, make stuff that might actually fail. Not content designed to go viral, not projects designed to impress people, stuff that you're genuinely curious about, even if, actually, to be precise, especially if you're not sure it will work. The French have another beautiful phrase, avoir le courage de ses opinions, to have the courage of one's convictions. But we need something deeper, the courage of our own curiosities, the willingness to follow an idea even when we don't know where it leads. Make weird art, write strange stories, build something utterly useless, cook something that shouldn't exist. The point is not success. It's the practice of bringing something new into the world without anyone's permission.
Hi-ho, it's off to work we go.
And now here's a small but an important one. Wear something you hate just to feel the edge. Not because discomfort is inherently valuable, but because your aesthetic preferences have been so thoroughly algorithmically optimized that you've forgotten what it feels like to choose something based on your own inexplicable impulses. Put on colors that do not work for you. Wear clothes that don't fit your carefully curated aesthetic. Notice how it feels to move through the world in something that's genuinely yours, not something that's been focus grouped by the internet. It's not about looking weird. It's about remembering what it feels like to make choices that come from inside you rather than from outside pressure. And most importantly, cultivate bewilderment. Seek out experiences that confuse you, ideas that don't make sense, people who think in ways you cannot immediately understand. The German word Verwirrung means confusion, but it literally translates as being tangled up. That's what original thought requires: the willingness to be tangled up in complexity, to sit with not knowing, to resist the urge to immediately Google your way to clarity. Original thoughts don't emerge from certainty. They emerge from the productive confusion of engaging with reality on its own terms. Here's what nobody's going to tell you about original thought. It's not about being radical or revolutionary or disrupting entire industries. Those are the Hollywood versions of creativity. Being original isn't about being radical. It's about being honest. And honesty is damn near rebellious right now. Honest about what you actually think, not what you think you should think. Honest about what you actually want, not what the algorithm thinks you want. Honest about who you actually are, not who your personal brand suggests you might be. In a world of performed authenticity, actual authenticity is subversive. In a culture of curated personalities, genuine weirdness is revolutionary. In an attention economy that rewards sameness, simply being yourself becomes an act of resistance. The most original thing you can do right now isn't to invent something new. It's to stop copying something old. It's to notice where your thoughts aren't actually your thoughts, where your preferences aren't actually your preferences, and where your dreams aren't actually your dreams. And then, bit by bit, thought by thought, choice by choice, to start remembering who you were before the feed told you who to be. The future will not belong to the clever. It will belong to the ones who stopped copy-pasting and started remembering who they were before the feed told them. The ones who preferred being wrong in their own way to being right in someone else's way. The ones who remember that the most radical thing you can do in a copy-paste world is to think your own thoughts. So here's your homework. Go think something weird. Go want something inexplicable. Go be someone the algorithm cannot possibly predict. The world has enough copies. It just needs more originals. And that starts with you. This was The Unusual Practice. I'm Charlie, probably not any wiser than I was before, but until the next time, stay weird, stay confused, and remember, it's all just temporary.
Mom, somebody just followed me.